We came to Worcester in 1964, and we lived at that point at the other end of Worcester, out on a hill outside near Parkview School. It's on the west side, and we were going to the college fireworks display, which was being held on the golf course. And as we pursued through the evening, it started to rain, and it started to rain very heavily. And so the fireworks were washed out. But in that case, we went home, didn't think much about it. We knew it was raining when we went to bed. And because we lived on a hill, we had no sense of water being a problem. Now, we lived on top of a hill. We could look out and see the flood in at the fairgrounds, and it just looked like a lake. And if you go out there today, and if you see after a big rain, you'll see lots of those fields still go quickly underwater because they're really low, and the killbuck comes right by them. So we knew it was serious, but we didn't know quite how serious. But we didn't have any evidence of it up where we lived. That we were high up, the ground was porous, and so there wasn't any standing water. So I went out and, well, first of all, we didn't have any water in the house. The water had been turned off. We had a play pool out in the backyard, a plastic thing which we used to put in the toilet, to flush it. But we quickly discovered we didn't have water and we needed to get some. So I went out to, I think it was that day, I went out to up here in the north end where Big Lots is now. And there were fire trucks there, and they began to dispense water. So we would take these big gallon jugs out there and get them filled up. And when we turned on television, we discovered that the city was isolated. In other words, you couldn't go up 3, you couldn't go west, and I don't think anybody tried to go east, but Wooster for at least 24 hours was totally isolated. You couldn't get, emergency vehicles could get in and out. And then later that day or that afternoon, I was going over to Henry Copeland's house, who was then a member of the history department, but soon to be president. And I was going to save I knew his basement flooded, so we had his key. I went down to rescue his history notes, and it was standing water in the basement. So I got out what I could. I don't think anything ultimately was ruined, but it was close. And as I was coming back, I was driving down Highland, and I may have been the last car going down Highland that could get through because the road behind me collapsed. That is, you could feel it going away. And so I realized that my best place would be at home. So I went back. I did what I could for Henry. I went back, and we watched things on TV all day, of course, but we didn't really realize how bad it was until we began to get local reports. If you go down to the fairgrounds building, the county fair area, you'll see a marker of feet, and that was put in as the water began to recede, and everybody was astounded at how much water had risen. So it was really dangerous. The police had to go out in rowboats and one fireman, I think, was drowned as a consequence of that. As you may know, I think about 11 people died in that flood. And so that sort of brought it home to us. But there were divers out and things of that sort, I'm told. I didn't see them. But not much would have changed today. They did what they could. They did it very quickly, and had they had more time, I'm sure more people might have been saved. But as we lived at the top of this hill and only had to come down for occasional things, we watched a lot of this later on, that second day, for example, on TV rather than, and by radio, rather than going out and exploring. I mean, it wasn't the weekend to explore. And then on the evening news, national broadcast had some information about Wooster and the loss of life down here. We had the radio on, and you know, what the radio was trying to do was get around town and get a sense of how bad it was. And so these reports would come in scattered form. I don't remember very much of the particulars beyond that. So that was my experience, and it certainly dawned on not only me but lots of people how fortunate we were to live where we lived. Had we lived down where we live now, we probably would have been, well, I don't know. There's a creek below our house. It wouldn't have flooded or anything, but we live on an angle, and who knows where our house might have been. But it hadn't been built, so we were okay.